I'm going to talk all about arm pump today, the causes of it, why motorcycle racers keep getting it, what happens inside your arm when you do get it, and most importantly, how motorcycle racers go about fixing the problem. For people that have never experienced it before, arm pump is basically where your forearms pump up solid when you're riding a motorbike. As your arms pump up more and more, it gets harder and harder for the blood to get into your arm to help you use your hands to control the front brake, the clutch lever and the throttle. Arm pump isn't the most painful thing in the world, but it does get to the point where you feel some kind of burning sensation inside your forearms, your skin feels tight where the arms are pumping up, and it then gets to the point where your hands go numb and you can't use your hands. Obviously in motorcycle racing that's a huge problem. You're really reliant on using your hands, whether that be for the front brake, the throttle or the clutch. And if your arms do pump up and you can't use your hands, then obviously this becomes really dangerous. That happened to me in 2017. I was racing at Oulton Park and my arms were pumping up more and more whilst I was riding a superbike, and it eventually got to the point where I was going up over Clay Hill at about 130 mile an hour and my arm pumped up that much that I couldn't feel my right hand, and as I came up over Clay Hill the bike began to wheelie, and just when I wanted to close the throttle to stop the wheelie I opened it more because I couldn't feel my hand, and it wheelied that high and fast. It sent me all the way to the edge of the track. I nearly ran on the grass at 130 mile an hour, and at that point I realised I needed to do something about it. So what exactly causes it? Well, that's the biggest problem with arm pump. There's no real rhyme and reason to it. Some riders will experience it one day and then ride the same bike and the same track the next day and not feel any symptoms at all. Some riders may find that they ride a motocross bike and get it really badly, and then they ride a road race bike and don't experience any symptoms at all. But basically what causes it is from gripping on really hard onto the handlebars. The bike may be wheeling a lot, or you're braking really hard, or the track's quite physical, or on a motocross bike it could be tank slapping, or you're getting tense over the jumps. So all that pressure you're feeling from riding and the tension from gripping the handlebars and hanging on then translates into your forearms and you begin to experience problems. So let's talk about the science of what's exactly happening inside your forearm. Underneath your forearm skin you have something called a fascia. Now your fascia is basically just like a sheath of fibrous material which is a bit like a sausage skin. So excuse my graphic description of this, but if you imagine you've got a sausage in your hand and you squeeze that sausage to increase the pressure inside it, you can imagine it would begin to bulge and swell. So what happens inside your forearm is basically that sausage skin has nowhere to go, it won't stretch anymore, and as more and more blood keeps trying to come into your forearm, there's nowhere for that blood to go, and it increases pressure on the outside of your arm, which then pushes on the nerves and other things inside your forearm. Obviously, if there was more and more blood and more things being squeezed into your forearm, at some point it would explode, and that's the feeling you're feeling inside your forearms at the time when you get an arm pump. Thankfully, your arm doesn't explode, but it does create this numbness inside your arms where you can't hang on and you can't grip the handlebars properly, and that's when you experience real problems. Now, there isn't an exact reason why you get to that point, and I've heard lots of different theories on why riders get it more than other riders. One interesting thing I have heard in an interview is that Marc Marquez and his brother Alex both train exactly the same. They do the same amount of riding, the same training, and they obviously come from the same gene pool. Now Marc says he never experiences arm pump, but Alex does. And that's the same for me. I'm on my second arm pump operation now, and my brother Taz has never had the arm pump operation and doesn't seem to suffer as badly as I do. So what exactly can you do about it? Well, that's the difficult part. There's lots of different theories and old wives' tales on what you should and shouldn't do to alleviate arm pump. I've heard some people try and give themselves arm pump, whether that be having a brick tied to a piece of string and a stick, and you basically twist the stick like this, and the more and more you do it and the brick travels up towards your hand, that effectively gives you arm pump. And some people's theory is that if you can give yourself arm pump before you go out on the bike, then you won't experience it as badly on the bike. I've heard some people try and give themselves arm pump 2 days before they ride, so then when they get on the bike their arms are already stretched, I guess, and ready to ride a motorbike. I've heard loads of different people take various supplements to try and alleviate the symptoms. I've heard people train their forearms more to try and stretch the forearms. I've heard people try and train their forearms less, so there's less muscle inside their arm. I think you can begin to see how no one really has a logical and full explanation of why this is happening and what you would do to alleviate it properly. One common thing you will have heard about if you've ever watched MotoGP racing is the arm pump operation, and that's what I'm going to explain next. Now basically what happens is riders will go through various different ways of all these old wives' tales of trying to alleviate arm pump, and some people can manage the symptoms okay and they never get to the point where they actually need an operation. Whereas riders like me experience it worse and worse and worse, and it eventually gets to the point where no matter how many old wives' tales, how many supplements you take, how many different theories you try and apply to it to try and fix your arm pump, you get to the point where the only other option you've got is to have a mechanical release or an operation on your forearm to alleviate the pressure and the symptoms. Never want to shy away from a YouTube video. Luckily for you guys, I've gone through exactly this over the last few months. I've kept it a complete secret. On the 10th of May I went for my first consultation about this, and the reason I kept it a secret is in racing, every single little advantage you can get on your competition is really crucial and really important. So if other competitors know that you're likely to get arm pump, then they've got that in the back of their mind that they've got an advantage over you at the end of the race. Thankfully for me, I've now had an operation and my symptoms have gone completely. So I'm quite comfortable telling everyone that I did have arm pump, because now I've got rid of it, I feel like I've got an advantage at the end of the race, because some of my rivals may experience it whereas I won't now at the end of the race. So that's quite a satisfying feeling. So in 2017 I had keyhole surgery on my arm. You can see a tiny scar here, and there's one, and there's another scar here. You can just see a small scar there. So that was a mechanical release I had. I went to Derby to have that done, and basically they cut a small incision in your arm and open your forearm up. This time round it was different, however. My arm was getting more and more pumped up, and I felt like the keyhole surgery I had last time didn't do a great deal. It fixed it at the time, but 4 years later on, I'm back in the same position. Now for the benefit of this video, I thought I'd take you all along on my journey of arm pump here, so you can see firsthand what it's like for someone to get arm pump, having the operation, and out the other side of the recovery, and what it's like once the arm pump symptoms have gone. And then later on in the video I'll take you back to how I got to this position with my lovely fresh new scars. Just done the consultation and he thinks I should have it done again, so this time they're actually going to make a bigger cut in my arm, and hopefully that will put it to bed and it will give me a bit more room in my forearm and I can get back to racing properly. But yeah, the pain in the backside, could do without having an operation every 6 months, but that's part of the job, I guess. If it was easy, everyone would do it. I am currently 10 minutes away from Manchester. Today is the... Don't mind Bill here, just mooning in the back of my shot. Today is the 14th of May and I'm 10 minutes from Manchester. I'm getting my arm pump operation done today. I don't know if I can actually film in the operation, but it's only under local anaesthetic, so it's just this arm. But yeah, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. I don't think anyone likes having an operation done. If you have a look at my arm now, this is what it looks like. There's a tiny scar from 2017 when it had it done last time. But if I do that, you can kind of see where it's bulging out a little bit now, and all the sort of little, there's a hernia there on my arm, and the same in the top, there's a hernia there that wasn't there a year ago. So, but yeah, he'll cut that, and then you can see there where that's coming out, where I'll have a little bit more room on my arm hopefully. And yeah, all fun and games, motorbike racing, so I better crack on, get to the hospital, and I'll check in either when I'm at the hospital, or if I don't get to film in the hospital, I'll check in on the other side of the operation when I'm coming home, when I'm a little bit less talkative probably. See you over there. Well, that's a nice day out. So I'm back. It's 7:15 now. The operation was pretty fast. I went in at about 10 AM and by 11 I was out. My arm pretty much feels like, well, exactly like you'd think it would feel like. I've had a bloke that's gone in there and messed about with my arm and cut things inside it, and that's exactly what it feels like. The operation's pretty straightforward. I don't know what got into me today, because I'm normally quite squeamish, but he basically just asked if I wanted to watch. So as I've been interested the whole time about arm pump, I just watched the whole thing. Watching something like that was pretty graphic anyway, but then watching your own arm live was probably not something I recommend. I've basically now got to wait 10 days. I've got pretty large scars up the top and bottom of my arm. You can see it. So there's one scar on the top and then one scar on the bottom as well. So I'll just show you as the week goes on what happens with your arm and the bruising that comes out. But the inside doesn't actually have to heal. There's no healing that has to happen. It's just a case of cutting it open so you can get some more movement in there. And then you just have to wait for the scars and the stitches to heal up. He did a really neat job of doing the stitches. Yeah, price you pay for trying to win a Superstock race. For the rest of the evening, I'm just going to sit on the couch and watch TV and eat ice cream. So today is Monday. I had the operation done on Friday. Here's how it looks. I'm going to take this off today and take the dressing off and have a look at what's underneath. That's the bandage off. You can see where the scar's going to be now. I had the operation on Friday, today is Wednesday. Just thought I'd show you what's happening with my arm. That's it, it's not actually sore today. The only problem I've got is at the end of the bandage there's a tiny lump. I don't know if you can see that. All around there is completely numb, I can't feel any of it. So I'm not sure if it's like a nerve's been pinched for the swelling or what, but I'm hoping that goes away. It's now the 14th of June at time of recording this. It's a month on from my operation, and I'm pleased to say the operation was a complete success. It wasn't without its problems. I suffered a little bit of a nerve problem. So 10 days after my operation, I went and rode a mountain bike to try and test my arm a little bit and see if it had made a difference. You can still get arm pump on mountain bikes going down hills. You're gripping on hard and you're trying hard to hang on, and it's quite easy for someone like me that suffers from it to get arm pump on a section like that. Unfortunately, down this hill, there was a lot of vibration and a lot of shaking going on, and it got to the point where I couldn't hang on to the handlebars anymore. This nerve was sending a shooting pain from the top of my arm all the way up to my shoulder, and it got to the point where I couldn't ride anymore. So I was a bit nervous after that first test. It meant that I couldn't ride for another week or so, and I had to let all the symptoms settle down and calm down again before I could ride. After that though, I moved on to the test at Oulton Park. Oulton Park's a track where people suffer from an arm pump. If your bike's not quite handling right, you can hang on really hard and give yourself all the symptoms. And I'm pleased to say, after a full day's riding, I didn't experience any arm pump. And the difference that makes is unbelievable. It means that you get to an end of a race run, your arms are still fresh, you haven't got any tightness or your arms pumping up at all. And it makes riding a motorbike a pleasure. When you've got arm pump, it's the worst thing in the world when you can't hang on to the bars, you can't feel anything you want to feel, and you can't control wheelies or braking properly. So it is a real lifesaver when you do have this operation done. Now, before I move on to the last special treat of this video, I just want to open the floor up to everyone watching this video and your thoughts on it. I find it really bizarre that we're in a sport now where we are all having to have this operation just so we can ride a motorbike. If we move this over to football and you heard that all footballers were having an operation on their calf so they could kick a ball, I think there'd be questions asked about it. So I don't know, I'm just interested to hear everyone else's opinion on it. It's something that's part of motorbike racing now. We all just get on with it and do it, but maybe it's something to look into for the future. Now, the special treat of this video, I kindly asked the doctor whilst I was having the operation to video the whole thing for me. Now, I'll give you a warning when this operation is about to play. I won't play it if you are squeamish, so you can click off before it starts. But basically, it was really interesting watching this. If you can put up with the goriness of it, you can see exactly what happens when you have an arm pump operation. You can see where he first cuts the skin, he opens the skin up, and then you're left with a fascia underneath. And he got me to tense my arm during it. And as he opened the cut up and incised into my arm, you can see the pressure immediately released inside my arm. So it was really interesting watching that. I understand it a lot more now. I've seen that firsthand and what it does. And basically now there's a bigger gap inside my arm, so my arm has more room to move when the muscle does bulge as it starts getting blood forced into it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. For people that do want to watch it, I'll give you a countdown in a second of when this operation is about to start. And for people that don't want to watch it, if you do want to check out my Patreon page where I've got an exclusive community alongside this YouTube channel, I would really appreciate the support. Now, for people that do want to watch this, I'll start the operation in 3, 2, 1, bye.
This is done at wide awake and the local anaesthetic. You can see it's a bit whiter around the edges, and that's the drug called adrenaline that I put in that constricts the blood vessels, so we don't need a tourniquet. He's wide awake doing this. He's had it done before through a small incision. You can see there's a little bit of scarring there, but basically this is what we're released in pump arm. It's this fascia, this bag around the muscles. Just make a fist for me now, grip, and you can see how it bulges through there. And so when he's racing, you know, the power, this is just going to build up and get really tight under there. So all I'm now going to do is with him, sorry if you're squeamish, is just incise that. You can see now immediately it bulges up. Look at that. And we're going to carry on and just release it all the way up here and down here. In the fascia, now the fascia is this fibrous layer that holds all the muscles down together. We've made an incision along here. You can just see it there. There's the edge of the fascia. There. And that was tied across there. So we've incised that, and that's now nice and loose. And then we've incised it here, and again, that's nice and loose. So move your fingers backwards and forwards, and there you can see all the tendons and the sinews moving. They're all nicely released. So as the pressure builds up with him gripping, these will be able to expand and not be held by this very tight fascia, which is basically like a fibrous bag around the around. You can see how tight that would be over the top of there. Already it's difficult. I wouldn't be able to probably close that. That would be a real struggle to close now. So that's taking the pressure off.
Isn't that fascinating watching that? I watched the whole thing live, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone that's about to have the operation, as it's something you can't unsee when you've watched your own forearm be hacked to bits like that. But it was really interesting. I understand the whole process a lot more now and exactly what's going on inside my arm. And to try and future-proof myself, in my opinion, I'm going to do less upper body exercises, whether that be press-ups or pull-ups or anything in that area, because I believe that the more muscle that's inside your forearm is going to create more pressure against that sac on the inside. So I'm just going to calm down on the upper body exercises and just use motorbike riding to train my upper body. I hope that's been interesting. I hope you've enjoyed it and you understand it now. You've now got bragging rights in the pub with your mates when you understand arm pump more than they do. I'll see you next week in the next video.